I mean, and then along these lines, just this was some stuff left over from last week. Joe Biden weighs invoking his executive authority to stage a border crackdown ahead of the 2024 elections. So, I mean, getting into this article a little bit here, tell me how this is significantly better than the Republicans. And I don't just mean that in a static sense. People will put them side by side and go, okay, well, they are 1% better than the Republicans. And I'll take 99% Hitler. History is a moving target, okay? History is not a static thing. Things keep rolling on. So here's the question that I'd like to ask you, and then I'd like you to ask yourself. Where, if you support this over time, do we end up? Does this really effectively oppose the Republican Party by just being 1% or 5% better than they are, even if you think it's bigger, 20%, 30% better? The Republican Party keeps getting worse, yet they're not really winning. Again, the Democrats are not winning against them. The Republican Party keeps going further and further to right and maintaining their presence in the government. So things as a whole it's not working. It's not getting better. You can vote Democrat all night and day. The Democratic Party is not an anti-fascist party. They are part of a fascist system which is going into more and more crisis and cracking down more and more. And this has been happening over decades. And so if you keep voting Democrat, it's just, you're going to see the same overall trajectory. The government could be 100% Democrats. They're not going to substantially change anything. And the conditions will still be ripe for the Republican Party to come right back. So that's what I'm saying is, like, where does this get us over time? So anyway, President Biden is debating whether to invoke a sweeping presidential authority that gained infamy during the Trump administration to stage a crackdown on migrants coming to the U.S. southern border. Three people familiar with the plans told CBS News. He is weighing citing a law dating back to 1952 to severely restrict access to the U.S. asylum system, which is buckled under the weight of record levels of migrant arrivals along the border with Mexico, the sources said, requesting anonymity to discuss internal government deliberations. That law, known as 212F, allows the president to, quote, suspend the entry of foreigners when it is determined that their arrival is not in the best interest of the country. The Trump administration used that law several times, including to ban immigration and travel from certain countries, most of them predominantly Muslim, and to bar migrants from asylum if they entered the country unlawfully. So you got Biden contemplating doing the exact same thing. Go back again to that Listen to Michigan quote, where the guy's like, well, what are you going to do? Vote for Trump? He's talking about a Muslim ban. Well, fucking Biden's thinking about, like, using the same law. How are we substantially better off? And again, it's not just about whether in the moment you think that there is some gain or, you know, some improvement by going with the Democrats. It's that even when you get Democrats, you're still going to be worse off 5 years from now than you were before. And it's going to keep going like that forever. It doesn't get better, it gets worse. So things keep getting worse even when you vote Democrat. So if you accept that the two major parties are both imperialist parties working hand in glove with each other, or even if you don't accept that part, it's true, but even if you don't accept it, then just look at it. They're functionally, and they have complete dominance of the U.S. government, these two parties, and things keep going in the same direction no matter who's in office. Really, over time, it's the same trend. And the Democratic Party is not apparently interested in doing anything significant that could actually crush the Republican Party. In fact, the top Democratic Party leadership keeps saying we need a strong Republican Party. So you have to look beyond these two parties if you want anything to change. And you might be saying, well, but the electoral system, the way that it is like really heavily biased against any other party. Yeah, I agree. The entire system needs to go. What I'm telling is you need to look beyond this entire system. Remember, politics is the concentrated essence of economic interests. The economics, that's the basis of it all. The politics is the reflection of different class interests, and the Republican and Democratic parties don't represent the working class. So to get a political movement that actually does represent working class interests, you have to look beyond these parties toward the creation of an entirely different system that doesn't resemble this one at all. In fact, you have to get rid of this one and then put a completely new system built from the ground up in its place. And that might seem daunting to you, and it might seem intimidating, but we can do it if we work together and we stop making excuses for, oh, do we want we're on a sinking ship. Do we want it to sink at, 3 feet per hour or 1.5 feet per hour, when even if you get the extra time, you're not using it to get off the ship? Okay, it's a sinking ship. Both parties represent a sinking ship. One is just sinking maybe a little bit more slowly than the other, but they're committed to taking turns with the other party that it's going to sink faster under. So do you want to be on the sinking ship party bandwagon, or do you want to get onto we have to get off of the ship and do something else? We need to be building a life raft now and get to shore and then go live our lives. That's what we're talking about here. You have to get out of the system entirely. All right, they just don't give a fuck about you. So anyway, here's a good example of that, actually, thanks to a Blue Sky poster for this. Couple of headline examples. DNC committee, Democratic National Committee, blocks Medicare for all from even being considered. Meanwhile, a new poll shows that nearly 90% of Democratic voters support Medicare for all. Right. So you've got something that the overwhelming majority, I think it was only 8% of the Democratic Party base actually opposed Medicare for all. Yet for some reason, it's that 8% that gets represented in the DNC policy. Then below, Democrats vote against including marijuana legalization in 2020. Meanwhile, same thing, 90% of Americans say that marijuana or cannabis should be legalized for medical or recreational use, poll suggests. And by now, cannabis has been legalized, decriminalized in many different states. The sky has not fallen. So yeah, 91% of Americans say that marijuana or cannabis should be legalized for medical and recreational use, poll suggests. So here's another one about how far behind the DNC is. This is from Sludge. The DNC is still contracting with firms that fight against unions. We're in 2024. Labor unions sought to pressure the DNC into banning anti-union vendors in 2022, but a review of FEC, Federal Election Committee disbursements data, reveals that the party group is still paying millions of dollars to firms that offer union avoidance services. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't represent labor. They represent the 1%. I mean, they've been talking about card check, for example, forever, which would make forming a labor union much simpler, more streamlined process. If you get 50% plus one of workers in a proposed bargaining unit saying that they want to unionize at the time of the sign-up for the authorization cards or A cards, then you can just bypass the election, because if the election was held that day, it would pass. They won't even do fucking card check. They've been talking about it forever. So yeah, they don't care about you. They don't care about labor. They work for the 1%. I mean, and all of the kind of stuff about, oh, if Trump gets elected, there may never be another election again. Would it matter at this point? Because neither party actually listens to anyone. So, as Marxists, we do want to support the expansion of bourgeois liberties as much as possible, as much as realistically possible, because why? What are we interested in? Intensifying the class struggle. So, to the extent that expanded civil liberties allow for an intensified class struggle, that can be helpful. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm tired. I've been doing this for over 4 years now. I mean, and only 4 years. It's only been 4 years. I'm fucking exhausted, because it's just like having come to a lot of these conclusions myself and then finding supporting literature and historical evidence for yeah, this is correct. I just don't know why people are so fucking stubborn and so resistant to just seeing reality on this.